I'm so excited.
To go back to the beginning, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to be where I am now. A lot of people don't know, but when I first moved to Philly, I was bankrupt.
Okay, so how does your social media usage translate into money?
It's not just about opening a restaurant and making the money from that opening and helping someone, but it's helping them achieve their dreams.
How do you prep your clients?
Uh, I would say the number one thing I do across the board.
How do you go from nothing to hanging out with celebrities and athletes to growing your social media presence by more than 100,000 while helping to open about 3/4 of the restaurants in your city? In this interview about entrepreneurship, Kory Aversa talks about what it takes to run his Philly area public relations business and how he leveraged the growing popularity of influencers to help increase his reach and build his brand. Most importantly, he breaks down the steps he took to create his dream job, and he gives tips to business owners in his capacity as a public relations professional. Now, no matter what business or side hustle you're thinking of growing this year, I hope his advice is of value to you. But before we get into the interview, please subscribe to my channel, share the link, and tell your friends about it. It helps grow the community here, and it ensures that you won't miss any of the business advice that we have here. Thanks and enjoy.
I'm so excited for people to find out what you do. I'm so excited for this interview, Kory. Okay, so let's just start right off. Kory Aversa, give me like the elevator pitch of what you do.
Sure. So I'm the CEO and president of Aversa PR. So I'm one of the publicists here in Philly, being a huge cheerleader for our city. And in my spare time, if there was any, but also tied to my day job, I'm also one of the city's biggest influencers as Philly publicist with 300,000 followers on TikTok and social. And it all ties together, but I'm out here trying to share the stories of Philadelphia.
So how long did it take you to get to 300,000?
Um, Well, from when I first started with TikTok, I think like the about a year and a half into the pandemic, it was about a year when I went first viral and then got around 100, 150,000 followers. And then a year later, so about a year ago, I got the other 100,000 followers. And then the other ones have just been coming. So I'd say most of that is over the last 3 years.
So what are your social media platforms of choice?
Good question. I mean, social media is changing every single day, it seems. But TikTok, of course, and Instagram, and especially Instagram Reels. I mean, Instagram Reels seems to be where all the hot action is now. But of course, I love TikTok as well. So it's a struggle, but I'm trying to do both the best I can. It's funny because I go on Facebook and there's people who are different generations who aren't on TikTok and Instagram, and they're like, "We miss you." So I still try to go back to Facebook. I still try to do LinkedIn, still try to do a little, Twitter, but mostly Instagram and TikTok.
What are the benefits to going shorter as opposed to longer, like YouTube?
Oh, and I will say I am new on YouTube Shorts. I've been trying to teach myself, but let me just say I've been sort of trying it out, which is how I got on TikTok. I just tried it out at first. But I have been trying out YouTube Shorts. I can't say that I've been like investing the same amount of energy because I can't do that everywhere, but it is very interesting. I am very fascinated on YouTube Shorts. There seems to be this whole different collection of people that we don't really see on TikTok and Instagram. But at least for what I do, most of my stuff is on the shorter side. I'm really trying to show off where to eat and what to do and all those things. And I bring a little of my own personality and myself and my life into it. But really, mostly, I want, the city to shine and all those events and restaurants and small businesses to shine. I think YouTube Shorts, the difference there is people really are being more personality driven, a lot more tech driven. They're using a lot more bells and whistles and special effects. And TikTok and Instagram, I mean, again, I'm only doing it sort of in my spare time on top of doing PR. So I would never be able to fully utilize that unless I had a staff person. But I think there's benefits to all. If you've got the time, YouTube Shorts is definitely a fun place.
Okay, so how does your social media usage translate into money?
That is a very good question. I would say like I'm newer to the paid influencer scene. Over the last 2 years, I've been offered many great partnerships where I was paid. I was a year ago, I think this week, or a year ago last winter, I should say, I was hired by Raising Cane's to hang out with Mac McClung from the 76ers. And it was one of my first paid collaborations where they basically wanted to pay me to eat food with this celebrity on the Sixers. And I loved it. It was great. It was so much fun. But for me, it wasn't even all about the money. It was also like just something fun, very Philadelphia and great thing. But since then, there's a lot of different ways to make money. I see that on Instagram now. In fact, today alone, I saw 5 of these on my Instagram reel where some people can enable ads on the bottom of their reels. There is no more paid program on Instagram. About a year ago, I was actually bringing in a monthly income on there based on views. I don't see that active anymore for most of us, but you can add ads to the bottom of your Instagram. I haven't done that. I might explore that in the future, but want my followers at the moment to have to like look at an ad at the bottom my videos and be distracted. But I know for some content creators, that's a great source of income, especially when, they need that income to do what they're doing. TikTok also has
The
different ways
paid
to make.
advertisements you're talking about, right? They're not, it's not like YouTube where the company is like sharing their ad profits with the creators.
Um, well, yes, specifically what I was just talking about was the advertisements on the bottom of your Instagram reel. So like this morning I was following a video and like you saw the video here, and then on the bottom was a little banner. Um, I haven't seen many people I know doing it, but I know it's something new. And especially when they got rid of the old program on Instagram where we used to make money off of monthly views. I mean, there was a bunch of months in a row where I made the maximum $1,200. And for me, it was awesome. It's not my full-time job being a paid influencer or content creator, but it helped me with the bills for all the food I'm eating. People assume like everything you're out there doing is free, but let's be real, no one's out there eating 30 days a month for free. Like, and it does incur cost, and you've got to buy lights. I also need to pay people to help me during certain projects. And I will say, like, it's a tricky slope because there was someone that wanted to pay me $6,000 to eat at their restaurant and do a series of videos. Well, guess what? The pressure that came with that probably would have like driven me crazy because again, like I want to be authentic to my audience. I don't want it all to be about paid stuff. And imagine someone dropping this amount of money that seems crazy to you, and they're like, do a great job, no pressure, but we want all those views. And then, you kind of get over nervous, you overthink it. And it's not for me. Like, generally, if I take on paid partnerships, I'm very careful about it. I want it to fit in my niche of what I'm trying to do. But I want it to come off as fun and authentic. I don't want to have to act like somebody different. I don't want to come off as a robot reading a script. I'm not an actor. I mean, I'm pretty entertaining, but I'm not an actor. So I'm pretty careful. But I do know some people that are doing it full time and they're getting brand partnerships. And it translates from social media to the real world. I know people that are partnering with brands. They're also getting hired to host events where you might watch their content, but then go out to the restaurants and the different places in the city and actually meet the influencer, eat the food, sort of like a modern day version of promoters. There are a lot of different ways. Now, YouTube Short, I don't know a lot of people making money off it. It's very hard. You have to get to a certain level. And again, I'm very new on there in the last year, and it's kind of like the 10th thing in my day that I'm trying to sort out and figure out. But I think I'm fast approaching my first million views on YouTube shorts, and you also have to have a certain amount of followers. And it again, think if you're monetizing YouTube shorts, that's probably either your first or your second platform of choice. Where for me, it's TikTok and Instagram.
Uh, Now you also work in PR, so you've actually brought in influencers to help, spread your message of Philly love. When did you start moving towards influencers as opposed to just dealing with traditional media?
Sure. I would say even before the pandemic, I was always very active in the influencer scene. But going back over the years, the influencer scene used to be Twitter, folks on Twitter with 10, 20, 30, 100,000 followers. Of course, folks on Facebook, but that wasn't being monetized and it was a little more erratic. I would say the pandemic is really what flipped it, where a lot of our media events might have 60 or 70% who I would call media and traditional media, maybe 10 or 20% bloggers. A lot of the old-fashioned bloggers are now the modern day influencers on Instagram. So I think over the last 5 to 6 years, and the pandemic hit, you saw some of the bloggers go away and turn entirely into Instagram and social media accounts. So back in the day, pre-pandemic, it was maybe 60, 70% media, 10 or 20% bloggers, and then maybe only a small fraction, 10 to 20% social media influencers, as well as Yelp influencers and Google influencers. But post-pandemic, we're actually almost more like 40, 45% media, 45% influencers, and the rest is a 10% that's everything else under the sun. But it's very much now 50-50 in terms of my split, media versus influencers.
At what point did you realize that these media influencers have a huge reach?
That is a good question. I again, so much of this was how the world changed during the pandemic, where folks were at home refining themselves and refining their purpose, and a lot of people had extra time. Like, even how I discovered TikTok. People ask me how I found TikTok, why did I get on there. A lot of people know I taught myself how to use TikTok through my dog. Between Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, the love song TikTok trends and Olivia's driver's license song were the main reasons that I got on TikTok, because at first I thought it was crazy. But then I started to use it, and then that's when I saw, wow, this person over here, like Philly Food Ladies over the pandemic, all of a sudden they're getting tens of thousands of followers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, and people are going to where they're eating. People are asking them questions, they're answering them. Again, the way the pandemic shifted things, all of a sudden these people that are now at home are creating a bigger personality for themselves online, and they're carrying the audience with them. And the more authentic ones, the more genuine ones, are the ones I migrated to, the ones that really do it because they love Philadelphia, or they love food, or they love restaurants. So I think that's really where the dynamic changed and then of course I became an influencer myself, and all of a sudden, it's so weird, because at the end of the day, and you and I have been working together for years on the media side. Sure, I love it when I get out a story for a breaking news project and everyone in the city's talking about it. But for a while during the pandemic, what was funny was some of the influencers who didn't know me as the PR person were carrying and covering the stories that traditional media were putting up. They were going to my properties, they were going to my openings, but they didn't know that I was the one that put it out there. So I remember there was one influencer that I wrote a note and I said, "You've literally gone to the last 12 grand openings of ours. You should just get on our list." And that person said, "I had no idea there even was PR lists. I was just reading the stories in the news." So someone recently said, "What excites you more, when people watch your content or the influencers you're working with and see it on social media and then go out and bombard a restaurant during the first few weeks and make it a big success, or back to the traditional stories where I send out a press release and everyone in the city is buzzing about it from the news." And it's funny now. I actually think they work in great concert together. You can news to me is covering things in a top line certain way on their own pace, with what the news stations are doing, whether TV, radio, online, or print. But they also can't show you all the micro details. It's one thing to say, "Hey, in a press release, this restaurant's about to open. It is open. Here's what we have." You could list some food, you could talk about the aesthetic, but then you could go onto TikTok or Instagram Reel and see 50 influencers who all will show you a different aspect of that restaurant. One of them might like the bathroom, for example, and that there's some quirky art in it. One of them might find the most interesting cocktail on the menu and do a whole video about it. There's a video, there's an influencer called Bridget McFadden. She's the TikTok's hot sauce queen. And she came when Positano Coast had its multi-million dollar renovations about, I think it was about 2 years ago. She came to the reopening. Bridget is so funny. She should be a comedian. Well, she interpreted that opening and their cocktails in a way that nobody else was. So they had this funny cocktail. I think it was a little dinosaur or something, but the way her videos came off, nobody else in the room, and we had about 200 people, did it in quite the same way. And that's what I love about the content creators and the influencers. The media are all going to put it in a certain box, talk about the top line facts, and it's more like putting it out there in a certain way, where the influencers are going to find something that they love about it that means something to them, and each one is going to do it differently. So
Yeah, there are some points that you have to hit if you're traditional media, whereas and you only have a minute if as an influencer and also sometimes with media, but they can get into certain specific. They don't have any rules. There are no rules for them. They could do whatever is they want to focus on. Now, I, I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship because this you are your own boss, right?
yes.
I mean, you name the company after you. How long have you been doing it? How long did it take you um, to make money from starting a business to starting to like support yourself?
Sure. Well, and I'll tell you a very funny quick story. Years ago, before I was a PR company and started my own company, I was in a different industry doing fundraising with a little PR, a lot of nonprofit development. And then I wanted to break more into the PR side because that's what I went to college for. And I interviewed with some larger firms. And I remember I interviewed with a very well-known Philadelphia firm. And you were expected to be out at night until 11, 12 at night. You had to be back at your desk by 8 a.m. the next day, even if your event was, say, in Atlantic City or in Central PA. It didn't matter what time you got back, but you were expected at your desk. There was no lunches. You had to work through lunch and you were on the go nonstop. Sort of what you see in some of like a New York City movie about publicists. And I said, that's not for me. I don't want to I mean, I'm a hard worker, and I work to death, but it's not for me. That's not my pace. And guess what? You see me running around all the time. In November, December, most days I was out of the house for over 15 hours. Most days for the last 2 months, I slept less than 4 or 5 hours and I was working nonstop. And I guess they say that funny phrase, like sometimes you're your own worst boss. And some days I look at myself and I'm like, God, isn't that funny? I should have taken that one job because I'd be actually working less, not more.
It just
But
hits different when it's on your own terms.
Well, right. And you can't let things drop. I mean, they say you really gotta like be a go-getter and a hustler, like in terms of like hustling for the work and getting things done. Like you can't let things drop. All the responsibility falls on you, and your success falls on you too. So you gotta work really hard. And and that's why I love what I do and created the company was to make waves in the city. Like, sure, it's nice to make money because I'm in the food industry and I love food, but I want to, like over the last few years, over the pandemic, we helped open over 150 restaurants. We have about 40 more to go. And before that, I probably opened about 100 the rest of my career. So we're probably around 300 restaurants. It's not just about opening a restaurant and making the money from that opening and helping someone, but it's helping them achieve their dreams. Like I know that you and I've worked together with the Dilks family, Jason and Marlo from Slice and Punk Burger, and they're good friends of mine. But my work for them in opening up a Punk Burger or a Slice of their new Nipotina is that they've got all those children, a million children, and I'm
Like
helping
six or
that
seven
family
children.
realize their dream and their livelihood. And they always wanted to have these businesses and find a way to support their family. So the way I view it is I'm part of their extended family. I mean, I've actually spent many a holiday with them. But to go back to the beginning, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to be where I am now or even gave it a thought. To be honest, I just ran out the door. A lot of people don't know, but when I first moved to Philly, I was bankrupt. And I actually started a side company. I was in nonprofits, I was working in coffee shops. And I tell you this story because I know you want to talk about entrepreneurs, but I literally was working 3, 4 jobs, including selling Beanie Babies. Do you remember Beanie Babies?
I
Um,
remember.
So I lived on my own in high school. At the end of high school, I was supporting myself. I paid for college with those credit cards they send you in the mail. By the time I got to Philadelphia, I was bankrupt. I was in so much debt. And within a few months, my Beanie Baby business paid for my entire college education.
Wow.
I was working during the daytime, part-time job, and then all night long, I was finding Beanie Babies because remember years ago there used to be Spain's. The
Oh yeah,
Spain
yeah, yeah.
store.
Cards and gifts. Yeah.
Right. So the Spain stores had beanies all over the place. Remember, there used to be a Spain's every 4 or 5 blocks.
Yeah.
So back then, I sort of became the accidental entrepreneur to just simply pay for and exist in Philadelphia. And then years later, I was a nonprofit for a long time. A couple things happened. One of my dream jobs just ended quicker than expected. And oftentimes, when you're nonprofits and working so much and you're mission driven, it's like a shock when you're out of work. So I didn't really know what I want to do with my life. And I was actually in a really poor phase of my life. I was giving off what they call like nonprofit like funk. I'd go into interviews and people would ask you questions and they're like, what are you doing? And you would say all the right answers you're supposed to, like, I'm sending out resumes and I'm doing my research. Well, nobody wants to hear that. So I started my own blog and my own, back then it was my own Twitter account called Philly Loves Fun. I don't know if I think I knew you back then.
What year are we
You know,
talking here?
so it's right when I started my business about 12 years ago, I think,
Wow.
somewhere between 10 and 12 years ago. But I was giving off that
Wow.
nonprofit or that unemployed funk where I was giving the wrong answers. I was sad in interviews. People could tell I just didn't have any joy about me. And then I started to create my own website, sort of change direction of my life. And one day I just said, you know what? I love cupcakes. I love travel. I love all the things in Philadelphia. I've got this website. Life isn't going well. I was out of money from my unemployment. And I literally just woke up the next day and said, going to start a company and I'm going to make that company about all the things I love in Philadelphia. And then that's how Versa PR was started. My first intern worked in my living room, and my office was at the top of the stairs. So all day long, I would call down to her. My dog at the time would jump all over her all day. And it was the two of us. And I never knew where this was going to go. I never knew I'd have a full office and a team of people and over 100 clients. And when you say about when you ask me about like where did the money come in, I started to make money. I will say that I was also an event planning company, and that actually used to be what I did really well in life. I'm all about those post-it notes and the maps and the minutia and bringing the big picture together. And I really thought in the beginning I was going to make money off of the Aversa PR and events, the event side. I actually projected my first 5 years I would lose money on the PR side, and all my bread and butter would be from events. And my first event for Versa PR and events was $1 million dinner for City Year. Right out the gate, I got hired as a consultant. And believe it or not, I've almost never done an event since then. So my first event was $1 million event. The PR literally just blew up. And then that's when I really got
Wait,
involved in
how
social.
your first year, were you able were you in the were you in the red the first year? I mean the black. Were you making money the first year?
I was. I mean, not a ton of money, but enough to get by, pay my mortgage. Nothing fancy at all. And then it grew. I mean, and then I also had those growing pains of, staffing and budgeting and where do I want to go with things. But yes, I have always made money from when I started. It was just a question of how much was I making.
So at what point did you I know you posted that like you recently bought like a fancy car. At what point did you like what did it take to get the money to come in?
I would say just keep on doing what I was doing. I mean, I've never done it for the money. So in fact, a lot of the clients and my friends will tell you I'm not even good at billing people. There's people that will go months without getting a bill from me, or people want to talk to me all about the money. And I'm like, I just want to get your project done. Like let's say you hired me for your own cafe and you said it's going to open in 5 days. The first thing I'm going to say to you is, we got to get a timeline down so you don't miss a single opportunity. And other PR people might say, let's get our budget and contract together. And already I'm thinking of where I'm going to put you for the next 5 stories. Because that's really why I do it. I mean, the car I just bought, I did get a few comments like people were surprised I bought a fancy car. And some people in my life, and you've known me for years, have been like, Kory, like, you have a big company, like you haven't treated yourself in years. I mean, a lot of people know I get a massage once a week and think that that's fancy and treating myself. But to be honest, I don't view it that way because when people say, and I say to people, I work 15 to 20 hours a day sometimes, like I'm not exaggerating. Like
Yeah.
during December, I got the least amount of sleep that 1 month out of my entire life than ever before. So if I didn't have that 2 hour massage every week, I never would have recovered from colds that I was getting because I was
Right.
outside. And I never would have been able to keep pushing. So to me, that was more of an investment of keeping my spirits up and getting through the holiday season and being able to give everyone the services they needed. But
So
that car, it's a used car. I got a great deal. It's just what I wanted. But it my last car was, what was it, 13 years ago? It was costing me $3,000 a year just on repairs. And it's something I should have done. And you know what? I don't love shopping for a car. I know some people are going to be like, oh, we love shopping for a car. That car took me 2 years to buy. And even then I'm like, ooh, it is a little fancier than I'm used to. But now, you know what? I've had it a few weeks and it's the best investment ever. I'm already booking more meetings out in the suburbs because now I actually like driving because I hate driving. I'm going to go to my shore clients more than ever this year. So it is an investment I probably should have made. But everybody along the way, even if you're just starting out and you're not making a ton of money, I strongly believe no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial spectrum, you have to treat yourself, you have to know your boundaries, and you also have to take care of yourself. You know, a normal human cannot work 15 to 20 hours a week. If I get a 2 hour massage, that's almost like giving me an extra boost going into work Saturday and Sunday, because I usually get out Friday nights. Having a decent, reliable car is something you need. Even if you're just starting out and you're not making that money, just take a bubble bath at home. Buy yourself a fancy candle. You know, take yourself out to dinner that's not related to work. But I've always been a strong believer in that stuff, and that's why I've made it by all these years.
all right, tell me about your strategy when your clients are like, all right, we want to hire you. I know that you don't like to talk about the money, but what is the actual strategy of what are you doing? What is the
Sure.
value they're getting from you?
Sure. So when clients come to us, I like to think that they're getting, like some people will call me the Godfather or, good cop and bad cop. I think sometimes in the movies, like PR people and the word publicists are good baby kissers and handshakers. And a lot of people that come to me out of school, like through their internships and stuff, they think it's going to be all parties and food and eating. But guess what? It's not that way at all. I mean, you know that firsthand from the media side with publicists. It's not that way. Like for me, very particularly, you're going to get the handshaker and the baby kisser, but also the bad cop. Like, here's what we have to work with. Here's what your budget is. Here's where you need to be. We need, it's my job to keep pushing clients. If you want to make it on national news, we don't just pretend that you're going to make it there in a month. Here's the 20 steps you need to take. And if you've got a timeline, well, how are we going to make that happen? People usually hire me and my firm because we are aggressive, we're assertive, we're going to push you. If you say to me, I want to hire you, and let's say you're, again, use an example, you're going to have a cafe open in a couple months. Some people will say, it's just our cute little passion project. And, we don't want to go crazy. We want it in a modest amount of places. That's the first thing I figure out is where do you stand as the client? What's your budget? But also, what are you looking to get out of this? Are you just looking to open up something cute where your business is already doing well, but you're not getting credit for it? Or, sort of like you've got the cupcake, but you need the frosting on top. And
Mm.
then there's other businesses that come to us that need to be saved, or they're $2 million restaurants that if they don't get a big bang out of their PR from the beginning, they're not going to be here for the next 10 or 20 years. So I sort of sorted out with first and foremost, again, it's not about the money, but what do you want to accomplish? How much are you going to be a partner with us? Are you going to answer questions and do interviews? And are you going to be good on TV? And when I do ask you stuff, are you going to need me to draw everything out of you? Almost like, I'm sucking it out of you for like a deep dive interview and I'm the reporter. Or are you naturally sharing with, your information and you want to talk about all that stuff? much media training do I need to do? And also like what are the teams? Like you've got some of the best restaurant owners in the city, but they're having staffing issues. Who's the general manager? Who's the head of beverage? Who's the chef? Where do they fit into the big picture? So again, to me, it's about, and I think it wasn't always this way, but I will say the number one thing into 2024 is what kind of people do I want to work with moving forward? Do I want to still keep bringing up people who have no experience in PR? And for some of them, it's a lot of work. They're not, people think they want PR, but they don't know how to smile. They don't know how to talk to the public. They are bashful and shy. And then they hire me and I start to get them things and they're like, no, I don't want to be on TV. Well, that's what you hired me for.
Yeah,
So
you need
now
to.
I'm giving a
How
lot
do
of
you prep
time.
your clients?
What's that?
How do you prep your clients?
Uh, I would say the number one thing I do across the board is I'm super transparent. I lay down all the expectations. If someone's going to be, interviewing with you, here's who the reporter is. Here's biography. Here's the type of questions that are going to be asked. I believe in just keeping it honest and keeping it real. This is who this person is. This is what they're going to ask. This is what the interview is about. Are you comfortable with that? Do you need to practice? What can I answer for you? And I also keep my clients. Now, some of them don't want this information and some of them love this information. But what's the state of media? I mean, in 2024, the media is all over the place. Some of them are downsizing, some of them are upgrading, some of them are switching more to social. So I also try to keep the clients in the loop on a regular basis of who are the changing faces in the media landscape so that when we do talk about an interview, they're not surprised by it. So
Yeah. What's like the biggest bang you get for your buck?
say that again, I'm sorry.
What's the biggest bang you get for your buck? Is it social? Is it traditional? Is it is it, what is it?
If someone hires us, like you're saying, I think it really depends on your type of business. I mean, we've had some businesses that wanted to hire me for PR, but really could have achieved what they wanted over social. And a lot of businesses these days are trying to hire me for social, but really need more traditional PR. I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer for that. I think it's really what is your project? And it goes to everything in media and PR and social. Who is your audience? How do we reach the people that you need to be reaching? So I don't think there's a clear answer for that. It really depends on the circumstance.
What are the biggest tips you would give to business owners right now?
Um, I would say, do what you love and have a passion for it. And again, I've said this all along during this interview, but it's not about the money. You want your livelihood, but more focus on not how much money you're bringing in, but what your dream is and how to keep that dream going and alive. Really talk to yourself about what wakes you up in the morning, what you're passionate about. I can't emphasize enough, and it's so hard to say this because I've struggled with this over the years too, but you've got to have a good team, and whether it's your own internal staff or it's consultants, but there's a point where you have to decide. Sometimes people come to us and try to hire us, and I could tell that they're the know-it-all. They know everything. I don't claim to know everything, but I do know about a lot of things in my different fields. And you've got to find your experts in those fields. And you have to know when do you need to ask for help, get help, and then how to value your folks and also value yourself. Like I said, have a little time where you can get a break, self-care time, because I also find that's when you're most inspired.
I love that. Trust your experts. Like if you're bringing people in, then let them do their thing.
Yeah.
What has been like the number one lesson that you've learned in business over the past, 10, 12 years?
That's a very good question. I would say a lesson that I've still not completely learned, or it's hard to remember sometimes, but know what you're doing and why you want to do it and focus on that and moving forward versus your competition. Especially with the social media world and being an influencer and a content creator, it can be very hard to get distracted by what everybody else is doing and about the competition. And same thing for PR. know yourself and why you are different than other PR companies, know what sets your social media apart, but then stay on track. Like, and we all have bad days where you might lose an account and another firm gets it, or you might put up a video and it doesn't do well, but another person did a similar video and it went gangbusters and viral. We're all going to have those days and definitely feel those feels and, have a bad night or a cranky day where you're grumpy. But then you got to pick yourself up and keep going. And you really can't be distracted by the competition, the haters, the naysayers. You got to know why you're doing it, why you love it, and just keep moving forward. And when you have a bad day, feel it, let it pass, and then move on.
What would you say is the secret to entrepreneurial growth?
Definitely, I would say capacity building, another one which I struggle with because I tend to focus too much on the client work. But I recently just got a brand new office. I'm investing in staffing. For the first time in years, I finally found the right bookkeeper, and I have a bookkeeper versus like contracting it out and doing some of it myself. I think it's like, again, it's the same advice I'd give the client, which is you've got to invest in yourself and your company, and find that team and let the experts do their thing. And I have a very hard time with that myself because I can be a micromanager, especially when it comes to like what we do with the clients. But I would say all the same things I say to my clients.
You would say to yourself, what have you enjoyed the most so far?
I would say I just love being part of everything, like literally everything. Like the last year, I was looking at my videos the last couple days from 2023 beyond over the pandemic. I actually was like crying the other night because I was looking at the first year of the pandemic videos, and it was like weird because I was crying because it was such a sad time, but also how my clients, my friends, my dog, how we all came through it and we persevered. And then going into this last year, it's like life is forever changed. And I'm really proud of how I got out there, but also the things. And I wanted to do all the things. I ate all the food in Philadelphia. I went to every event. I mean, a lot of people know I'm called PR Santa for a reason. I represent at least 70% of all holiday things in Philadelphia, but the 30% I don't, I was there too. Like I couldn't miss a thing. So I'd say I love about the PR, the social, both of my businesses. I love doing it all, being part of it, and being part of Philadelphia's story forevermore. So,
what tips would you give to people for utilizing social media to build their business, whatever that might be?
uh, great question. That's what people ask me everywhere. I would say it goes back to knowing yourself and who you're trying to reach, and set some goals for yourself. Don't get overwhelmed. You want your content to be appealing, accurate, good. Don't run out on day one and think you're going to go viral. Know your audience, know yourself, and know your capabilities. And you can always build upon your social, but I always say start with a formula that I'm going to post 3 times a week about my business, and here's what it's going to be. And if I could do that, then maybe I'll get to 4 times a week. If I could post 4 photos, then maybe I'll start to do 4 photos in a video. If I could do 4 photos in a video, maybe 3 videos 6 months from now. But I would say know yourself, know who you need to reach, and do a little research on how you're going to draw that dotted line to them, and then come up with this is what you have to work with. You don't want to get burnt out, and go out there and just start doing it, but then learn from it. Don't just do something, say, oh, it only got 3 likes or nobody looked at it. Then you got to change it up, and you have to acknowledge you don't know everything, and the landscape is changing every single day. So get out there and do it, but do it in a reasonable way, but also have the facts of who you are and what you're trying to sell and who you're trying to reach behind it.
All right, Kory Aversa with Aversa PR. How can people follow you and find out more about what's happening in Philadelphia?
Sure. So they could go on Instagram, Kory Aversa, Kory Aversa, Aversa, and on TikTok, Philly Publicist. And you can find me as Kory Aversa on Facebook and Kory Aversa on Twitter too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great to chat with you.